What's up, babes? Thanks so much for tuning in to It's Only Embarrassing If You're Embarrassed podcast. My name's Madison, and I'm the host of It's Only Embarrassing If You're Embarrassed podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in today. This episode, I wanted to make a Mental Health Monday episode because I think it's a great episode for really any time in your life that you're just feeling down, feeling like you don't want to keep going, feeling like you can't keep going, and a couple of reasons that you absolutely should keep going. So this episode is going to be titled 4 Reasons You Should Keep Going. And I'm going to go through 4 reasons that I have as to why you shouldn't give up, you should keep going. And I'm also going to share some stories along the way. Some of the stories are going to be some funny fail stories, some imposter syndrome stories, and a little bit of everything in between. So I hope you guys are ready to tag along on this adventure with me. All right. I wanted to start by talking about how easy it is to want to give up. And this could literally be applied to anything. It's easy to give up your gym routine. It's easy to give up eating healthy. It's easy to give up putting effort into your relationships. It's easy to give up if your career is getting hard. It's easy to give up if you just keep seeing a loss after a loss, after a difficulty, after a financial burden. Like, life is tough sometimes. And so in my time of having lots of opportunities where I really had to decide, am I going to give up or am I going to keep going? I kind of narrowed down to 4 reasons that I personally have kept going and 4 reasons that I think that you should too. So the first reason that I wrote down as to why you should keep going. So I'm not sure if you guys have watched The Office, but there is this episode where Michael actually quits his job and he's like, you have no idea how high I can fly. And at the time he's quitting a job that he's very unqualified for and was lucky to have, and it wasn't a good decision, but the quote nonetheless fits. So first reason you should keep going, to see how high you can fly. And this can be literally with anything. This could be with the fact that you just started going to the gym and you don't want to keep going, and you've been going for 2 weeks and it's kicked your ass every time and you don't want to keep going. But by week 6, you're going to be feeling great, girlfriend. So the story I wanted to share with you guys about this reason to keep going is whenever I was a little bit younger in my career, so probably 3 or 4 years ago, I have a job doing human resources. And so within human resources, there is this thing called SHRM, that's the Society for Human Resource Management. And that's sort of what governs HR, if you will. So within the world of SHRM, there are 2 different certifications you can get. You can get a CP certification, which is a certified professional certification, or you can get a senior certified professional certification. There are different qualifications to be able to take the tests. You have to have either a HR degree or so many years of experience to qualify for the different tests. So after I got my master's degree, I was able to qualify to take the SHRM SCP exam. And I personally took the SHRM SCP exam because I am a perfectionist, high overachiever sort of person. And so to me, if I'm like, there's 2 certifications, I have to get the highest one because, I was insecure and I thought that that was like indicator of my worth is whether or not you get the highest HR certification, but nonetheless. So I end up with a job that actually was going to pay for me to go and get this certification, which was super exciting. So I spent about 6 months studying for this certification, and I tell no one because I didn't know if I was going to get it, because I had imposter syndrome, because I didn't think that I was smart enough to get it, because I didn't think that I was old enough or knowledgeable enough or whatever it was. So me studying like quite a bit for 6 months for this exam that I literally told nobody that I was doing, because at the end of the day, I wasn't embarrassed of failing. I was embarrassed of people seeing me fail. Like, I was gonna know regardless whether or not I got the certification or not. And So I very vividly remember, probably like a week before I go to test, I share with somebody that I work with that I'm going to do this test. And so I'm doing it on a Saturday. So at our ops meeting that Friday, this person shares with the group, like, oh yeah, Madison, you're going to get your certification this weekend for that HR exam. And I'm like, fuck, I cannot believe he told people. And that's because I literally spent 6 months studying for this exam that I ended up passing and ended up getting the certification. And I literally didn't want any of the people that I work with to know because I was afraid that I was going to fail and they were going to see me fail. And that's so dumb. So my tip for this is to let people cheer you on and also to not be afraid of people seeing you fail. Because once these people that I worked with found out that I was going to do this exam, they were all like so kind, so supportive. Like on Monday, they were like, oh my gosh, I bet you passed it, and you like literally so much support that I neglected because I didn't feel good enough or worthy enough or smart enough to have or deserve or get this certification. So because of that, I didn't want people to know because I didn't want people to see me fail. And so I think that's a very interesting perspective and kind of a new perspective that I'm starting to adapt, which is, are you afraid of failing? Are you afraid of people seeing you fail? Because I think most of the time we're not afraid of failing. We know that like we can fail and we can get back up. It's we don't want to see people see us fail. And newsflash, no one's watching, no one cares. And so that's also something very interesting I've learned in therapy is like, no one's paying attention to what's going on in your life. Like everybody's the main character of their own story. No one's keeping up with you. No one cares if your life's on fire. And people that are or like thinking whatever because of you probably aren't your people anyways. So that is my tip for this one, that you should always see how high you can fly and you should bring people along on the journey, because more than likely you have people that actually want to help you and actually want to cheer you on. All right, moving into the second reason you should keep going. The second reason you should keep going is because you will build confidence in yourself. So in the last story, if I had maybe studied for that test and then I actually registered to take it because I wasn't sure if I was going to pass it or I wasn't sure if I could do it, then I would have become even less confident in myself. And so by putting in the time and energy, by going, by doing, by getting the certification, by passing the test, I built confidence in myself that like, holy shit, I can go out and I can do these things and have these things, and I am smart enough and I do know enough. And it's so funny because looking back when I went to get the certification, I had a master's degree in HR. I'd been doing HR for probably about 5 years. And I thought that the Society for Human Resource certification was going to dictate whether or not I was actually successful at this career. And it's so funny, just we make our own measures of success and then we compare ourselves to those when a lot of times it's not even necessary. If I hadn't gotten this certification, nothing would have changed. Like, I still would have had my job. I still would have been doing the same job. Literally, like, I made it this big deal and it wasn't even this big deal. But what I did gain in the meantime was the confidence in myself to know that, wow, I actually can go do these really hard things. I can share them with people and I can bring people along on the journey. So I find this one manifests for me a lot when it comes to work. And so by that, what I mean is I have been doing human resources pretty much as like a one-person department for the past probably 4 years or so. So what that looks like is for about the first 4 or 5 years I was doing HR, I had an HR boss that worked over me and kind of supervised what I was doing day to day. If I had questions, if I ran into something weird, like I had somebody there that was doing what I did with more experience and knowledge than I had. And then about 4 years ago, I transferred into the role of being kind of the solo person that's making all those decisions and doing all those things. And it's so funny how imposter syndrome manifests, because if you look at it, you would look at it as like, oh my gosh, you finally got to maybe this point you were working towards. And instead of seeing it like that, I almost saw it as like, holy shit, why did somebody think that I was qualified to do this? And like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And now all these people expect me to make these decisions. And what if I make the wrong one? And guess what? Nothing bad has happened yet. And I've been now on the other side of that for 4 years. But as I say, I'm on the other side of that for 4 years. This week something happened, and it was so funny because I was in my car. I'd been working in Charlotte at one of our locations there, and I was on the way home, and I got hit with a pretty challenging issue in the world of HR. So I'm driving down the road in my car at like 1:12 p.m. on a Tuesday, thinking to myself, how in the fuck did I get here? And why, how, what am I supposed to do? Like, am I going to make the right decision? And I had that whole kind of like reminisce spiral again, like literally this past week, right? I've already had the certification now, for like the story of me feeling imposter syndrome about that certification. That story is like 3 or 4 years ago. And then this past week, I still felt that same, like something new, something big, something where I'm the accountable decision maker, and I have to make sure that I make the right decision and make sure that I'm taking into consideration liability and employment law and just all these different things. And so I handled the situation one day at a time. It's still somewhat unfinished. There's like kind of one piece to circle back into. But when I got to the point where I realized, like, oh shit, I came up with a plan, executed the plan, managed the people, like, and everything went perfectly fine. And in fact, the person that was involved on the last call said, thank you so much for handling this so quickly and so professionally. And that's their perception. And my perception is like, oh fuck, who gave me this job? I'm not qualified. And why am I making these decisions? And so it's so funny how, like, now looking back on this event that happened this past week, it was again another confidence builder of like me now being like, Madison, obviously you were going to figure that one out. Obviously it was going to work out. Obviously everything was going to be okay. But in the moment, I wasn't like that. And so it's so funny how I continue to learn these lessons, no matter how many years of experience or certifications or degrees I have, things still pop up where I'm almost triggered to get back to that imposter syndrome mindset. And I have to remind myself that nope, you know what to do. You are going to figure this out, and you're going to do it in a way that's professional, respectful, and the right thing to do. All right, moving on to reason number 3 that you should keep going. So the third reason you should keep going is to inspire others. Because if there's something that you're really struggling with or struggling through, I can guarantee you there's somebody else that's watching that is at a not as far along point as you are, that's seeing where you are and thinking, wow, I'm going to get there someday. And I'm going to give you guys a kind of small example of how this manifests for me. So if you guys have been following along, you know that I quit drinking about 7 months ago, that I am in AA, and that I go to AA every single week. So probably 2 weeks ago, I'm at AA, and the general concept of the AA meeting that I go to is there's an AA book, we read from it, we share stories, and the shares can be anything from why you're triggered to drink that day, to a story about how your drinking ruined your life, to whatever you want it to be, right? It's just the vibes, whatever you want it to be. So my share, so I go to AA like 2 weeks ago, and I am triggered to drink when I go, right? So it's like perfect timing. Like it's like a day where I'm like, thank God I was going to AA today because I need to. So I go to AA and my share, and so my thing is like if I go to AA and I'm triggered to drink, I'll like volunteer to read and like share like right off the bat, because I know if I do, I'm gonna feel so much better. So I do. So I read and then I share. I'm like, okay, you guys, I came here tonight, 1, because I always come on Wednesdays, 2, because I was triggered to drink. And lately I've noticed that whenever I'm triggered to drink, I have this thought creep into my mind that's like, you could go out and you could have 1 drink tonight. Or that's like, you could stop and you could get a bottle of wine on the way home and have a glass. And I think I've shared this about my drinking journey, but I have never had 1 drink. I've never had a glass of wine. I've never had 1 beer. I never have. I've had a bottle of wine. I've had a 6-pack of beer. I've never had 1 beer. I've never had 1 glass of wine. So I share this with my AA group, is like, hey guys, like this like thought keeps creeping into my mind, and then I have to remind myself, like, Madison, you have never gone out and had 1 drink, and when you've been alcohol free for 7 months and are thinking about like relapsing and going on a bender, probably also not when you're gonna have the capabilities of having one drink. So I'm sharing this with them, right? And I remember whenever I first quit drinking, and I remember probably like 2 months in telling my boyfriend, like, I wonder if the cravings will ever stop. Like, I wonder if there will ever stop being a day where I'm like, man, I'd love to have a glass of wine. So 7 months in, it hasn't stopped, right? So I'm sharing this with the AA group, and like a ton of people chime in that are like, yup, like it has happened to me, it still happens to me, whatever. So there's this new guy in AA, and I go like regularly enough that like most of the time I know if there's like somebody that's like new to the group or whatever. So I walk out with this guy who I could tell was new. So I am trying to do this thing where if there's new people there, I like say something nice to them when I'm walking out, like, so glad you came, nice to meet you, or whatever, because it's hard and it's scary. And there were a lot of people that were really nice to me whenever I first started going that made me comfortable being able to keep going. So I'm walking out with this new guy, and I'm like, oh, it was great to meet you tonight. Like, I'm sure I'll see you next week. Like, have a great week. And he's like, hey, before you go, your thing that you shared about tonight, like, does it ever stop? And my immediate response was laughter, right? Because I have a fucked up sense of humor. So he asked me this, and I'm like, yeah, it's so funny. Like, I used to always wonder if it would stop. And like, I got my 6-month chip a couple of weeks ago. So that's where I'm at in this journey, and those thoughts still enter my mind. And he's like, I just made it 2 weeks today. And like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what the first 2 weeks of quitting drinking when you've been an alcoholic is, but it's the first 2 weeks are terrible. First month, terrible. First 2 months, terrible. First 2 weeks, extra terrible. So I'm like, ooh, like I feel this guy's pain in my soul, right? So I'm like, man, like so proud of you for making it 2 weeks. Like the first 2 weeks are the hardest. Like, I was like, but I will tell you, whenever I was 2 weeks in, I had that thought every day. I had that thought of, I want to go home and I want to have maybe just one glass of wine every day. And now maybe I have it once every other week. And so like, I kind of like share this with him. And it's so funny because in the world of AA, I always thought I was sharing for myself, not for others, because I always took it as there's so many people that have been in AA or been on this journey so much longer than I have, but I never stopped to realize that, like, it was literally in this moment that I realized, like, oh shit, I used to have these thoughts and these cravings every single day, and now I have them like once every other week, and that's huge progress. And so I didn't even realize or acknowledge the progress in myself until I was sharing it with somebody who I was just kind of like comfortable enough to just try to be friendly to, because I could resonate with his journey. So my tip for reason number 3 that you should keep going is to not be ashamed of your journey, because there's a very high possibility that your journey can and will inspire others. All right, 4th reason you should keep going. So this reason I wrote down specifically for my mental health strugglers. So I remember whenever I was really struggling with anxiety and depression, and I was just so depressed, I was not excited for the future. I didn't realize, and it didn't resonate with me because I was just like so depressed that it couldn't, that some of the best days of my life haven't happened yet. And some of the people that I will come to love in my life, I haven't even met yet. And so that is, I think, the 4th reason that you should keep going, is because there are best days and best people that you haven't even yet experienced. And if you don't keep going, you're not going to experience those days. You're not going to meet those people. And so I think that was like one that really resonated with me whenever I was just really struggling with mental health, was trying to remind myself that even if I don't feel good today, there will come a day that I do feel good, and that I can have the days that I enjoy again, and the experiences I enjoy again, and all those sorts of things. And so I think whenever, specifically with depression, I think it's really hard to see that there are better days and better people and better experiences that are yet to come within your life. All right, so my tip for reason number 4 you should keep going is to think to the future and be optimistic. And so I don't care if you're so depressed that you're thinking to the future and being optimistic. is that you're gonna get coffee tomorrow and you only treat yourself to coffee once a week. Like, if that's your thing to be excited about, like, romanticize your life, be excited about it, do the damn thing. And I think that's so important, is the concept of just learning to romanticize your life no matter how challenging things are for you in these moments. So, and because I think you should keep going. All right, so I am starting to wrap these episodes up with a Pinterest quote. So the Pinterest quote that really resonated with me for the 4 reasons you should keep going episode is, there's this quote that I've had pinned for a little while, and this quote says, "Everyone's fixing their bodies, no one's fixing their souls." And I was like, ooh, that's deep. First of all, I feel like whenever you read a quote that has soul, you're like, ooh, like, it's deep, right? And I think this is so true. Like, how many, okay, I'm gonna use myself as an example. In my past life, I would have spent any amount of money to have a cute outfit and pay for the gym and have my nails done, but I would never have spent that same money to go to therapy and to have a good psychiatrist and have good mental health meds. Like, I never did that in my past. And so now that I am doing both and taking care of my body and my soul, it is so refreshing. So I stumbled upon that quote and it really resonated with me, 1, because I think it's pertained a lot to my struggle, 1, and 2, because it was really a good reminder for me of, now I'm in this stage of realizing and understanding that you can fix your body all you want, but you've got to fix the shit that's going on in your soul and your mind and your heart and your head before anything in your life is going to change or get better. So that is my little ending note for this episode. Fix your soul, not just your body. And I hope you guys enjoyed these tips as to why I think you should keep going. If you guys like this episode, please like, share, subscribe. If you thought you had a friend that would benefit from hearing these 4 reasons that they should keep going, share with them. And if you guys have any tips as to things you guys do to keep going, drop them below. Love to see what other people are doing. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of It's Only Embarrassing If You're Embarrassed podcast. My name's Madison, and happy healing, babes.